Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to Nature Obscura, a podcast where nature and the supernatural collide. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Grace. Each week, we share spooky happenings from the great outdoors, from cryptids to curses, ghosts to witches, and everything in between.
Before we get into this week's main story, Grace, have you had any eerie or earthy encounters or anything crazy happen to you this past week?
Something kind of crazy happened to me this past week, but I'll let you be the judge of that. So basically, somebody I know, somebody close to me, called me very randomly and played a practical joke on me, which I don't know if it was really a joke or a prank, but basically, this person told me that they had their leg amputated, and I believed them. After asking them several times, "Are you positive?"
Are you positive?
Like, seriously. Like, you're not lying, right? This person said they're not lying like 4 or 5 times, and then kind of said that I was being insensitive. And turns out at the end of the conversation, they did not have their leg amputated. I was invested in the whole thing.
How long was this conversation?
It was like 10 minutes of them telling me
That's
exactly
too
how they
long.
got their leg amputated, like how they had a foot infection, blood poisoning. It went up their leg. They woke up in the hospital, leg amputated.
That happens. Like, what the heck?
And I don't know if I'm just like super gullible or what, but like I repeatedly was like, "Are you telling the truth?" And they were like, "Yes." And then whenever they told me, they're like, "No, I didn't get my leg amputated. I was just kidding." I was just like, "Are you serious?"
Well, now the next time something happens to that person, they're gonna be like, it's gonna be Boy Who Cried Wolf or whatever.
Exactly. Are you
You're
sure?
gonna demand photos. I
Yeah.
need to see that leg detached from your body before I believe you.
Exactly.
Goodness.
Yeah. Marissa, I hope you had a better weekend than me.
Me being independent, I feel like I'm a pretty independent person. I like doing things like on my own, or just the time of the year kicking in and me being antisocial, which is more likely. I went to the movies by myself and I got movies to see Send Help, or tickets to see Send Help, which is a Sam Raimi film. He does Evil Dead and like the original Spider-Man movies. Horror comedy, like dark comedy, thankfully, because I ended up getting into my seats. No one else appeared the entire time. I was in that theater all by myself. And of course, my anxiety mind, the first thought was like, okay, so someone can come in here and murder me and no one would know. Or like, because do they have cameras inside the theater?
Don't know.
Like inside?
Just watching the people watching the
Yeah.
movie.
And then like inner 8-year-old me was like, the grudge could be like, I could look to the right of me or the left of me and I just see like some scary girl with long black hair coming to haunt me.
Haunted movie theater wouldn't be the first time.
Exactly. Thankfully, it wasn't like a historic movie theater. Thankfully, I got over it pretty quick, got pretty invested in the film. It was pretty good.
It's so nice going to the theaters by yourself. I feel like there's just like no pressure to like, I don't know, do anything, like laugh when other people laugh or get like startled. You can kind of do your own thing.
Exactly. I love going to the movies. In the news, though, have you seen? I'm reading the headline here. Human skull donated to Michigan Goodwill store. Police are searching for woman responsible.
I wonder, does it say what town?
Chelsea. So Chelsea is
gosh.
like nearish our area, kind of, but in Chelsea, Michigan, police are looking for a woman who dropped off a human skull at a thrift store on January 26th, and they have security footage of her. She is very nice highlights. I'd say mid-50s, black sunglasses, which is kind of weird because I feel like it has not been sunny at all. Did she know
That's
what she was
sketchy.
doing?
Yeah. But also, if you're trying to hide a skull, why would you donate it, you know?
That is true. Did not find any visible damage or uncharacteristic holes in the skull. So it wasn't, shot or an obvious sign of like head damage. They've turned over the skull to a medical examiner's office, and now police would like to speak with the person responsible for dropping off the skull. I read that apparently it was wrapped in a t-shirt.
Oh my gosh. This is shady.
It's so weird. So yes, if you have any information, please do call the Chelsea Police Department. I do not, but I'm intrigued by both a lover of thrift stores and the macabre. But it's just like, how does that happen?
That must have been alarming for the people working or volunteering just to find a skull and be like, wait, this is real.
I wish we could get there. I wish we had interviews of them. I want to know.
I want to know their reactions. I want to know exactly what happened.
I want to know who was on shift. I want to know what time of day. I want them to I wanna know if they, like, thought it was real right away or if they thought it was fake, like, what was the process of that employee having to go to their manager and be like, "Hey, I think something's off about this."
And because they probably come across very weird items every now and then, but that must be a first, I would hope.
Right. So weird. So, yeah, that's some creepy news happening in Michigan. So tonight we're going to be traveling to Crater Lake, Oregon, which is both a national park and one of the most mysterious bodies of water in North America. We're talking UFOs, cryptids, and hauntings. Oh my. But before we get into the supernatural side of things, Grace, would you like to take us on a tour of this lovely national park?
Will do. All right, so before we get into the stories tied to Crater Lake, it helps to understand just how unusual this place really is. Crater Lake was officially discovered by non-native explorers on May 22nd of 1902. But its true origins go back nearly 8,000 years, when the massive volcano Mount Mazama collapsed after a catastrophic eruption. What remains today is a caldera roughly 5 to 6 miles wide, surrounded by sheer cliffs of volcanic rock that rise nearly 600 meters above the water. A caldera is a large cauldron like hollow that forms when a volcano's magma chamber empties and the ground above it collapses inward. At its deepest point, Crater Lake reaches 1,949 feet, making it the deepest lake in the United States and one of the deepest lakes in the entire world. It's filled entirely with snowmelt and rain, with no streams flowing in or out. This closed system helps explain the lake's strikingly clarity and its deep and beautiful blue color.
How many I wanna know what's at the bottom of that lake. No streams going in and out? How many bodies? How many cars? How much crime scene evidence?
I wonder that about every body of water, every river. What's at the bottom? What's the history? Are there boats? Are there bodies?
Are there and there's definitely at least a boat, a car, probably a body. Even I lived at the last apartments I lived at, we were right off a lake, and while we were there, sonar, like, diving investigative team was looking for evidence connected to a woman's disappearance in the area. They didn't find anything related to her disappearance, but they did find a car, and it's just really interesting, that line of work where people go and investigate bodies of water.
Or you see the videos of people using a metal detector, just finding small things, sometimes from hundreds of years ago.
It's so neat. I'm a person where I'm more curious and I wanna know more about what's at the deepest parts of, well, lakes or the oceans versus, like, space.
Me too.
I don't care about space, I'm gonna be honest. I think it's because 'cause I'm scared of it a little. It's too much for me to handle. It's infinite? What do you mean? I can't handle that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Crater Lake is also Oregon's only national park, sitting high along the crest of the Cascade Mountains. This region receives over 40 feet of snow annually, and the park can remain snow covered for nearly 9 months of the year. Even as spring begins, it's common for 10 to 15 feet of snow to still be covering the ground. And we thought Michigan was bad this winter. Yeesh.
I don't know, like, that whole sentence just is filling me with dread and upset.
I know, 40
I'm
feet.
so over it.
I know. And I know a lot of the US has gotten this huge snow and ice storm this past week. And man, I can't imagine that amount of snow. Although Mount Mazama has been dormant for centuries, Crater Lake is not as quiet as it looks. In 1945, bluish gray clouds of gas were observed rising from the lake multiple times over several months. Later, scientists discovered hydrothermal vents deep beneath the water, along with hot springs and fumaroles, which are openings in the Earth's crust that release heat and gas along the crater rim. Earthquakes in the 1990s further fueled speculation that volcanic and geothermal activity may still be lingering beneath the surface. Despite its isolation, Crater Lake has historically supported a carefully balanced ecosystem. Fish are not native to the lake, but 6 species were introduced between 1888 and 1941, specifically to attract tourists. But today, only 2 remain: rainbow trout and kokanee salmon. Both are allowed to be fished using artificial bait. Another introduction has had more serious consequences. The signal crayfish, brought to the lake before 1915, has displaced much of the native Mazama newt population, a true biological invasion. The Mazama newt is a unique subspecies of the rough skinned newt found nowhere else in the world, and it's a powerful example of localized evolution. These newts have adapted specifically to the deep, clear waters of the caldera over thousands of years. Crayfish and newts compete for the same food sources, including insects and larvae, and crayfish will also prey on the newts directly. Today, crayfish occupy roughly 80% of the lakeshore, forcing the newts into deeper, less ideal waters to escape predation. Scientists continue to monitor this ongoing struggle because if the Mazama newt disappears here, the subspecies is gone forever.
I have a light bulb in my brain right now. I'm pretty sure I learned about this in our evolutionary bio class in college.
Really? Yeah, I
This
think it's so
species, yeah.
interesting, especially whenever you're basically seeing a new species evolve kind of right before your eyes, but basically over thousands of years. And I looked it up. It's been about 6,000 years or so that these animals have diverged from their common ancestor. So it's not very long, but yeah, it is really cool. From late spring through early fall, the landscape around Crater Lake comes alive with color. Red, orange, blue, and purple wildflowers spread across the park, with an estimated 400 species of flowering plants. Dry, subalpine meadows stretch along the caldera rim near peaks and cinder cones, while grass and sedge dominated meadows appear near areas like Rim Village and Sun Notch. Wet meadows form at lower elevations and along streams, supporting a completely different mix of plant life. Most of the park's forests are made up of old growth conifers and provide habitat for a wide range of wildlife. There's the Clark's nutcrackers, mountain chickadees, pine martens, golden mantled ground squirrels, and even coastal tailed frogs. And as a frog gal by profession, I had to look into these tailed frogs. Marissa, have you ever heard of these?
I haven't. Tell me more.
Okay, so these are very unique. The male tailed frogs have a tail like projection that is actually an extension of the cloaca. So basically, they have a tail that's also a penis.
Why?
So this
That's
allows
so
for
stupid.
internal fertilization, which is extremely rare in the frogs. And they actually do it because where they live, it's very turbulent, fast-flowing water. So they have to have the internal fertilization, otherwise the sperm will just be removed immediately from the eggs. And another fun fact, they are also completely mute and they don't have external ears, which is also very unusual for frogs. But you have to think, they're in very fast moving water. They're near waterfalls. They don't need to hear. They don't need to make sounds. So why have any of these features, you know?
That's so cool.
It's a perfect example of how life adapts to extreme environments. Did you see the picture?
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture now. He literally just has a cute little, like, mini tail.
Yeah,
That's so interesting.
it's really cool.
It immediately reminded me of A Quiet Place, where they can only talk near waterfalls because it's super loud. And then my brain, trying to tie it in somehow, was like, okay, maybe in A Quiet Place, a scientist would try and mix male-tailed frog or the tailed frog DNA with human DNA to make us mute and not have external. Well, do we need external ears?
Well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
you would want external ears, though. That way you could tell if you're making sound because you don't want the
That's
other
right. You
creatures to
don't
get you.
want. I guess just don't talk.
Yeah. I see where
Just
you're going with
and they.
this. I think it's the wrong direction, though.
I. You're right. You're right. I'll let John Krasinski take care of it. He did a good enough job.
Yeah. But I talked to my manager about this because he is a frog expert. And he said that this is one of the few species that do this. There are a few others, but this is pretty rare as far as frogs go.
Well, in conjunction, okay, not only external fertilization, but also they're mute and they don't have ears. Are you kidding me? Frog calls like just so what? That's awesome.
I know. We were watching frog videos after we started talking about this earlier today. All of these animals call this place home. It's a landscape shaped by fire, ice, and time, one that feels remote, powerful, and strangely alive. And it's within this dramatic and isolated setting that the stories surrounding Crater Lake begin.
Tribes including the Klamath, Modoc, and Yahoo have called this region home for over 10,000 years. The tribes regard Crater Lake in particular as a site of power and danger, serving as a gateway between two worlds, Earth and the underworld. Klamath legends tell of two spirits, Llao, the chief of the underworld, and Skell, the creator. They were both involved in a treacherous battle at Crater Lake. Llao from time to time would rise to the surface and watch humans on Earth. On one such visit, he was entranced by a Klamath chief's daughter, Loha, who had no interest in Llao or the behaviors he exhibited in his terrifying attempts to woo her. Loha told her father of these concerns, and the village elders decided to hide her for her safety. I want to know what behaviors he did that were that bad. I couldn't find out, but that's pretty extreme.
Hmm.
Upon Lau returning to the surface and being unable to find her, he was so furious that he caused volcanic destruction. Skell was called upon through the self sacrifice of two medicine men at the crater's rim, and Skell descended from above to fight Lau. As they battled, Lau ripped out Skell's heart, and in return, Skell got his final revenge by cutting Lau into pieces and casting his body parts into the lake. According to the oral history, indescribable creatures consumed all of Lau except for his head, which remains somewhere within the lake to this day. The crater is believed to have formed and filled with water to forever imprison Lau and restore peace. When Lau is disturbed, his spirit is said to conjure storms and possibly even shapeshift into a large crayfish that abducts people from around the crater's rim. Is he the cause of those newts going almost extinct?
Must be. What a jerk.
Jerk. To some Klamath people, the sight of the bright blue, perfectly clear water was too sacred for human eyes, and to look at that water would cause nothing but death and sorrow. So it's the literal meaning of it's so beautiful, it hurts, and could literally kill you to look at. To others, the water was viewed as a holy place, and people would swim in the water on spirit quests to become a shaman or be gifted divination and power. Often, those interested in going on these spiritual journeys would swim the lake at night in just their underwear to encounter the spirits that inhabit the lake and to pray for powers. One Klamath woman recounts her time when she was young. Quote, I went up to Crater Lake with a woman I knew. She tied my eyes and led my horse. Then she said, untie your eyes, and I nearly fell off the horse. I saw a man standing on the water far away, just like in the Bible. He scared me so. I don't know who that was, but I like to think of that man now. Jesus? But there's a lot of spiritual encounters just like this one that have occurred on this lake.
In such a beautiful place, I can see how that would be commonplace.
Right, there's some places that are so beautiful, even if you don't believe necessarily in a holy power or something religious or, like, spiritual even, it just really leaves such an impact on you. You can see why people gravitate towards those
For
things.
sure.
So the spiritual journey on this lake isn't an easy one. Individuals often went through dangerous and difficult climbs, with some running along the western rim and running down a wall of the crater of the lake. It's believed that those that were able to arrive at the lake without falling would have enhanced superior powers. Those that took on this journey would occasionally leave piles of rocks as evidence of spiritual effort and endurance, with four prehistoric sites in the area identified as such rock piles. The lake has come to be associated with a deeper knowledge and transformation of self. When first encountered by explorers and prospectors in 1853, the lake provided those with the same deep emotional response, but typically not the holy or religious kind. According to Klamath history, their people signed a treaty in 1864 which designated Crater Lake within their territory. However, Uncle Sam seemed to have a different understanding and made Crater Lake into a national park in 1902, just 40 years later. Throughout its history, Crater Lake has several documented accidental deaths, suicides, murders, and unexplained plane issues for those that fly above. We'll go through a brief timeline of the past just 75 years to highlight the strange concentration of disappearances and unexplained deaths in the Crater Lake area. So in 1944, two torpedo planes were flying in standard formation on a clear, uneventful day when one of the planes suddenly vanished without a trace and without warning. Search and rescue efforts determined the plane had crashed to the bottom of the lake, and the cause as to how this could have happened remains unknown to this day. Just 3 years later, 1947, a seemingly warm 4th of July where a husband and his wife were visiting Crater Lake, the husband calmly handed his wife his wallet before suddenly sliding down a rock chute to seemingly trying to slide into the lake and apparently drown himself, is what it's presumed to have happened.
He drowned
So
himself?
he tried. So with this fall, he appeared to have suffered a broken ankle and other injuries in the process, but it didn't kill him. Undeterred and pretty injured, he just decided to go walk further into the lake where he apparently drowned himself.
Okay. You know,
It's pretty weird and disturbing.
it is
And, there
disturbing.
wasn't
Yeah.
any obvious warning signs or motivations for him wanting to harm himself.
So it was kind of just a random thing, like it randomly came upon him that he needed to do that.
Right, like, it sounded and all the different sources I saw, sounded like they were just enjoying their 4th of July, husband and wife, and then out of the blue, he hands his wife his wallet and just was basically like, "Bye," and just slid down a rock chute, didn't die by the impact, and so he's just hobbled into the lake where he drowned, I just can't imagine.
Oh.
So, nearly 30 years later after that chilling incident, and keep in mind there's plenty of things happening in between, just don't have time to talk about all of it here. Nearly 30 years later, in 1974, a photographer named Charles McCuller visited Crater Lake to take some photos of the scenery. He was found 2 years later deceased. Just his pants, socks, and bone fragments were found nearly 14 miles away from where he first entered the park. Keep in mind, he entered the park on foot. So how did a quick stop into the park result in him being 14 miles deeper into the park?
So he was missing for 2 years, and then he finally showed up 14 miles away where he was last seen.
Yep. And his camera, his coat, the rest of his clothes were never found. So, it was pretty cold, and they didn't find anything else about him, so that's still unsolved to this day as well. Another 30 years went by, and I'd say this has to be among the most disturbing yet. Another 30 years went by when in October 2006, Kenneth Bulkey and his 8-year-old son Sammy were beginning a trail at the park when Sammy unexplainably and suddenly ran into the woods, his father Kenneth yelling for him to stop and followed after him. Kenneth had quickly lost sight of Sammy, and he was never seen again. Despite quick response and massive search efforts that went on for months after the disappearance, Sammy still hasn't been found to this day. And this made a lot of headlines and was really big news during when this happened, and the response was so fast, and it's just crazy to me that no trace was ever found of him again.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's so
someone probably had to
scary.
pick him up, but it's just so
So
strange.
sad too. I mean, you take your eyes off your kid for 1 second, or even they run into the woods for some unexplained reason and they just vanish. And like as a parent now, that is so scary. I can't imagine the panic that you feel in that moment. Like, oh, okay, this is kind of funny, come out now. But then you realize they're not joking. Your child is gone. Like either a predator got them or they just disappeared.
Right. It's really messed up. So, with a place that carries this much history, myth, and loss, it raises an unsettling question. How much of what people see here as imagination and how much isn't? The lake and its surrounding area have had sightings of unexplained natural phenomena, ghosts, UFOs, and cryptids. One of the most iconic features of Crater Lake, besides the beautiful waters, isn't any of what I just told you. It's a log that has mysteriously floated upright for over a century without any weight, defying physics.
That doesn't make sense, Marissa.
I have to insert a photo. Forgot to go through and add
It's
photos to this.
upright, so it's, like, up and down.
Yeah, I'll show you a photo. You're just gonna be like, "Oh," but it's apparently a really big deal, okay? So, I'm gonna insert this photo. If you could, describe what you see.
Okay, so this is a log that is pointing out of the water up, and it's white, probably due to just sun bleaching, right? But it's standing straight up like a telephone pole, basically. Marissa, I just have one question. How?
How? And that is a question that scientists to this day are trying to answer. The log is lovingly referred to as the Old Man of the Lake and is a 35-foot tall mountain hemlock that has been reportedly floating in the lake since at least 1896 when it was first reported.
And they're sure it's floating and not, like, planted in the ground?
Yeah, because like you said, it's like 2,000 feet deep and it floats. What is it? It's estimated to be about 450 years old. And while only 4 feet of that log sticks out of the water, it's known to travel throughout the lake, sometimes up to 4 miles in a single day.
Gosh, that is so bizarre. And it's never
I
just,
mean,
like, hit land. It's never just
no.
tipped over.
No. And some have tried to make it go on land, and bad things happened.
I would love to see a picture of it underneath the water. I wanna see what the bottom looks like.
True.
And if this is a thing, why aren't there more? What if there was a whole lake full of these things?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I guess it is, like, what makes it weirder because I've never heard of this occurring anywhere else. I can't see any photos of it underwater, unfortunately. But, one theory is that a unique species of moss that grows on the old man is keeping it buoyant, since it's typically a moss that is only found in otherwise, like, very deep areas of the lake. So they're assuming maybe that has something to do with it.
I'm surprised they just don't know.
I know. It's so weird. So at one time, some submarine explorers in 1988 were conducting research of the lake and were worried that the historic floating log would cause damage to their ship. To avoid any damages, they harnessed the old man log and moved him to the shore. What was a clear day had suddenly turned ugly once the log had been moved, with winds blowing increasingly and the current stirring strongly in the lake. Well, with that crappy of weather, the researchers couldn't do their job. So, unable to do their work, they moved the log back into the lake, and within moments, the weather again went back to normal. They didn't try and move it again, they just, I guess, called it a loss.
Yeah, coincidence or not?
I don't know. There's no such thing as coincidences.
That's what they say.
So,
I need to
of
know more
course,
about this. I just don't get it.
didn't get it either, and I couldn't find much. They're just like, "Yeah, moss." I don't know. It's like, "Oh, okay. Moss, ghost, gets mad at the weather." Maybe it's a spirit holding it upright. I don't
It's the
know.
only explanation.
That's the only thing I can
Either
think of.
that or, you know, government conspiracy, government cover up somehow.
It's actually a satellite.
Exactly. You know what? Aliens.
Aliens. That's the only logical explanation. This place isn't just creepy to the people that visit there, but the people that work there too. One ranger named Jan Kerwin refers to Crater Lake National Park as a quote, ghost and goblin park, with phantom campers often being spotted by rangers. The campers disappear when approached, and it's been witnessed many times. Rangers and campers alike have also reported sightings of orbs that are like bluish white light moving along the water, with some sightings reporting the orbs darting straight back down into the water. Aliens.
Aliens, yeah.
Aliens. The lights witnessed vary from subtle glowing to intense flashes with never any explainable source. In addition to strange lights or orbs being seen along the lake, there are reports of a ghostly, glowing canoe with no one inside. Strangely, the canoe appears differently to different people, with some observers describing it as small and old, while others describe a more modern, elongated canoe. Regardless of the type of canoe, it always drifts slowly and silently along the lake, with some saying it goes behind Wizard Island, disappearing and never coming out the other side.
I didn't know there was a wizard island, and now I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's pretty darn cool. It's called that because it's the shape of a wizard hat. Right. And of course, it's haunted. So, rangers and visitors actually report ghostly campfires on this island. Though, despite ranger investigations, like even during times no one's supposed to be there, they go and investigate what's causing these fires, making sure there's no issues or vandalism. By the time they get there, there's no evidence of fires, smoke, or even ashes. Lights have also been reported to hover over the island during times of shaman performances before shooting out into the sky. There's also another fun island, might not be haunted, but it's called a phantom ship island. And that's because depending on the time of day and angle of observation, the island appears to vanish, which is basically an optical illusion. Which, I mean, come on, those are fun. Like, I love places that seemingly disappear.
Yeah. I mean, there's no harm in just having a little fun, with an optical
Right.
illusion.
And it's called a phantom ship island. Count me in. On top of everything else. One particularly chilling encounter people report is encountering a tall, dark figure that stands perfectly still, the Dark Watcher. Sound familiar? Dun dun dun. He often appears at dusk or dawn and far away, never moving, just watching as if looking out at the edge of the caldera, enjoying the view. Rangers are the ones who have witnessed it the most. Many, initially concerned due to seeing a person standing alone so close to the cliff edge, run up and try and offer assistance, make sure everything's okay. When they hurry to check on the person, however, the figure is gone, disappearing in plain sight. A group of hikers claimed they watched the watcher step straight over the edge of the cliff and drop out of sight. They surveyed the area for some time and panicked when they couldn't find any evidence of the watcher. The hauntings of Crater Lake exist not only along the lake, but in the Crater Lake Lodge that sits directly on the southern rim of the park, with many guests reporting a menacing presence, making sleep difficult and restless, and many having nightmares. Other reports include a ghostly worker in old timey clothes near the main staircase, a rocking chair in the main lobby that rocks when no one is near, and of course, it wouldn't be complete without a little girl that haunts the second and third floors. Of course, she's laughing and running.
At least she's a happy ghost, you know? Take that over a screaming ghost.
For sure. So, Crater Lake has been a hotspot for countless UFO sightings. Witnesses have reported sightings of unexplainable aircraft from groups of 3 to up to 8 aircraft flying in formation, with some even reportedly emerging and disappearing to and from the lake, leading some to speculate about the presence of an underwater alien base. I couldn't find obviously any verifiable evidence of this underwater alien base, but I mean, between the spaceships coming in and out of the water and the old man of the log, I mean, what else?
Question. So it's nearly 2,000 feet deep, right?
Yes.
How do they go to the bottom? Do they put submarines into this lake? How do they know there's not an alien base down there? Because you can't free dive 1,000 feet, correct?
That's very true. I wonder how they actually figured that out. I imagine a very, very long tape measure, which means no one has been down there themselves, which means, in my opinion, that aliens could totally make a false bottom.
Mm-hmm.
They could do that. And then there's actually it's deeper than we think. And underneath that, like sandy, what we think is the bottom, that's where the underwater alien base is.
Yeah, so really this theory might have some credibility.
Yeah, I think you just talked me into it. And there's actually a couple compelling cases that have occurred within just the past 30 years. So in 1997, in early February, 3 bright disks were spotted speeding across the lake, followed by strange lights in the sky that ultimately disappeared into the water. These objects were followed by a mysterious sonic boom. I don't like that. The next incident occurred 20 years later in 2017 and garnered national media attention. A UFO described as being shaped like a missile or like a cylindrical aircraft of sorts was seen hovering over the lake. Reports of the mysterious aircraft came flooding in, and the Air National Guard actually scrambled together fighter jets to intercept it. As the fighter jets approached the craft, the UFO vanished without a trace, leaving the pilots of the fighter jets and the witnesses from the ground baffled, disappeared into thin air. And this was such a credible report. All these reports coming in, they literally gathered the National Guard too with fighter jets. I feel like that's a pretty big deal. How often do they bring the fighter jets out?
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of makes you feel like, okay, they're actually taking this seriously. That would be more scary to me.
Right, exactly. That's the scariest part. Okay. And of course, there's Bigfoot sightings in Crater Lake. I think Bigfoot is probably, well, Oregon is probably one of the most commonly reported areas Bigfoot is in, though he's apparently all over. Don't know how. So, rangers have reported following Bigfoot like creatures through the woods, large, dark, foul smelling creatures, according to rangers. If they get too close, even, they get hit with pine cones. Not only have there been apparent sightings of Bigfoot, but tragically, Bigfoot has even been blamed for death at the park, including a car accident and train collision.
Train collision?
Yeah, and you know what? For some reason at the time, my brain was just like, "Yeah, that's valid, I accept that." Let me do what? How did he do that?
Well, yeah, like, is that 2 trains colliding or he walked in front of a train and derailed it? Did you just look up Bigfoot train collision?
Crater Lake, yeah, I don't know, but there is a lot of encounters pop up when you search, Bigfoot, Crater Lake. I think what we should do probably just a whole episode of I mean, you could probably do 4,700 episodes of Bigfoot sightings, but maybe, like, certain Bigfoot sighting themes would be fun. Last but not least, there are reports of the Crater Lake serpent. Reported by the Fort Myers News Star in May 2002, A Georgia woman by the name of Mrs. Hatcher was out touring the lake in a rowboat, taking in the beauty of their surroundings and the lake's astonishing depth, when suddenly Mrs. Hatcher peered over the side of the rowboat and into the depths of the water when she spotted something really huge and long swimming underneath and along the boat. She had her friends look down, and they all became immediately frightened. They rowed quickly to shore and climbed to the top of the rim, warning others of the monster they saw. Mrs. Hatcher told the newspaper, quote, "The thing must have been a block long. To me, it looked like a dragon." So, whether the serpent was a trick of the light, an unknown creature, or something far older tied to the lake's violent creation, one thing remains clear. Crater Lake has never been just a lake. Between ancient warnings, unexplained deaths, vanishing people, and creatures said to rise from its depths, it's a place that demands respect. And maybe that's the real warning passed down through the generations. Some waters are deep for a reason, and some doors between worlds were never meant to be disturbed. Can I say, when I did read that last bit, when I was like going back through, I imagine that the Crater Lake serpent, what if he uses the old man of the lake, the log, as like a little toy?
That's so
Isn't that kinda
cute.
cute? It's
Yeah,
like
he,
a
like,
little fetch stick,
just, like,
just a
bumps
giant
it or
dog.
does circles around it.
Yeah, I kinda like that idea.
Alright, so this one was a fun one, but I feel like it wasn't as scary as some of our other ones. But regardless, let's still do the scare scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, like 1 is no big deal, seen that, been there, and 5 is spooky but entertaining, and 10 is the sort of terror that makes you rethink all of your life choices and will haunt you for the rest of your life. What about you? What do you think Crater Lake is? And there's so many different types of things going on at Crater Lake, so you can kind of pick your own thing and scale it that way.
As a general vibe of everything, I would say a 4, maybe a 3, but I'll go with 4. Deep bodies of water are terrifying to me, especially if there could be an underwater alien base, so that kinda makes it pretty fun as well. What about you?
I would say 3. Yeah. I feel like the scariest thing for me would be if I saw, like, the military chasing or trying to chase or find some kind of orb or metal missile that just flew by. I think that would be scary. But overall, like, if I saw a Loch Ness monster-esque creature in the water, I would be thrilled. I would be so excited. I don't love the idea that it seems some people just kind of want to go into the water and never come out, but
Not
because
great.
with those situations, what if it's you? What if that happens to you? What if
Yeah,
it happens to your friend that you're with, you know? That would be scary,
yeah.
but yeah.
And I don't wanna get too conspiracy theory, but what if the aliens were, like, calling those people in?
Yeah.
And, well, it's also at the same time, you have to wonder how many people have gone missing in this lake or in this region that people aren't aware of, whether it's, like, solo trips or anything like that.
And the guy that was missing and he was found miles and miles away, unless there's a murderer. I mean, animals wouldn't drag somebody, even a bone. What, it was 14 miles? That's
14 miles,
excessive.
and right, and I believe his parents did believe that there was likely foul play, but I don't think there's any official suspects or anything like that. But it was during the '70s, and I feel like that was a big time of serial killers and
Mhm, definitely.
it's terrifying stuff. But yeah, just the lack of answers, I feel, is the hardest part of all of it.
But, you know, crazy and bad things happen everywhere, and I wonder if because this place is so beautiful, if people just take note more. And the water is so blue, and those poor newts, you know, they're just trying to live their life.
I
Those
know.
darn crayfish. See, that's the scariest
And
part for me is thinking of an animal going extinct because of an invasive species. 9 out of 10
that is
scary.
terrifying. That is terrifying for sure. Well,
Would you go here?
would totally go here. I think it's a very pretty park. I've always wanted to go to Oregon. Just never had the chance to, but it looks absolutely stunning. Very picturesque. Have you been into Oregon ever or that area at all?
No, I haven't. I've only ever been to California on that side of the country.
Yeah, beautiful, mysterious, alien.
Definitely aliens.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this week of Nature Obscura. Tell us your scare scale. How scary do you rate this place? We'd love to know.
Yeah, are you peeing your pants or are you just kind of casually telling friends about your experiences, you know?
Exactly. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also email us your scary stories or any story suggestions you may have to natureobscurapod@gmail.com. And hey, if you've been listening, I mean, we're on episode 5 now? No, gosh. Episode 5 has come out. If you're still listening at this point and you've listened since the beginning and you haven't followed us yet, or even if this is your first episode, you should totally follow us and tell a friend. It'd mean a lot.
Stay obscure, Earthlings.
Transmission ending.